Hey, everybody. This is Maxine Taylor, and I have my forecast for the month of June for the United States. And I got it right here on, hang on, don't go away. Got it. So much has been going on in the United States. And I'm going to simplify it for you and hopefully give you information that will help you understand what's going on and what is going to be going on. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk about the sun. The sun is the giver of life. The sun is the center of our world in your birth chart. And so in the United States chart, the sun is in the first house and has been in that first house since it went into Gemini. And so the center of our life is our self. The first house in a mundane chart is the attitude, the political attitude, and the mood of the people. It also rules public health. And so here is the sun, the yellow planet. The focus is on the mood of the people. And since the most recent egregious killings of children and teachers and innocents, there is an uproar. And on the 11th, the sun sits on Mars. Now, this is the transiting sun. This is the sun going round and round, circling. When the sun is on Mars, which it will be on the 11th, this is when the uproar can increase. Okay, Mars is war, Mars is gunfire, Mars is impatience, Mars is anger, Mars is passion. And there have been all kinds of demonstrations about all kinds of subjects, as we know. And in a minute, I'll give you the new moons and full moons, and you'll see why things are kicking into place as they are now. And so expect anger, impatience, related to gunfire. I would hope that it would not be gunfire, but that it would be related to it. Now, on the 21st, the sun moves into the second house of the United States chart, and this deals with our money, our earnings, and our savings. It deals with the stock exchange, with banks, with personal debts of the people, and commerce and trade. So basically money and what it brings in. Now, the sun, the giver of life, wherever it is, whether it's in your personal chart or in a chart of a country, it brings that area to life. It gives it life. And so there can be an increase in income as well as spending. But the beauty of having the sun sitting on Venus and Jupiter, Venus on the 23rd and Jupiter on the 24th, Venus is the lesser benefic, Jupiter is the greater benefic. These are the good guys. Jupiter is abundance. Venus is in its own house in our United States chart. And so there can be added income for people through various sources. So after the 21st, mark that in magic marker on your wall. There will be a positive turn to the income of the populace. I'm thinking perhaps some of those ships that have been sitting out in the ocean will be able to deliver their products. But there can be just plain old ordinary more earnings. This looks really positive. Okay, now I want to talk about the new moons and the full moon. The reason being, these lunations are so important. On the new moon, that's when energy starts growing. Okay, on the full moon, that's when energy comes to a head. So I've backed the chart of the United States up to the new moon we had on May 30th, Memorial Day. For those of you who are not familiar with the US chart that I use the 7 Gemini rising chart with Uranus 8 Gemini. And so the new moon on the 30th was in 9 degrees of Gemini. And what it did was it brought energy to the people. Remember, the sun starts off in the first house. Well, it was set up, so to speak, by the new moon on May 30th. That sat on the ascendant. That's the personality of the republic. It is the attitude, the political mood, and it triggered Uranus, and that's rebellion. Well, if you think back, there was yet another mass shooting at that time. And the outpouring, the outrage, the incredulity of the whole situation is what this new moon is talking about. And so it's a new push from the people in a rebellious way. I'm not going to talk about Mars yet. That's on the full moon. And we can expect more of that for the next couple of weeks until the full moon occurs on June 14th in 23 of Sagittarius. Now, the full moon is when things come to a head, and the full moon is in our 7th house. In a mundane chart, the 7th house deals with international affairs. It deals with war. Look at Ukraine. It deals with lawsuits. It deals with lawyers. It deals with politics, marriage and divorce. It deals with the lower courts and contracts, but most importantly, it deals with the public. And so it also deals with our open enemies. All right. 12th house is hidden enemies. These can be people who appear to be of the same party, of the same mind, and yet they are not. Okay, the 7th house then deals with our open enemies. And so there can be issues that go on with that. Okay. This full moon in the 7th house squares Neptune, which is obfuscation, wishful thinking, idealization, or the dream come true. Neptune is in the 5th house of children, of fun, of sports, of gambling, theaters, movies, congressional and public hearings, and teachers. So the full moon squares this Neptune, which means those subjects, particularly the subject of children, and Neptune can be drugs, and that can be involved with sports, of course. But the full moon squares Neptune, so there is an issue with everything I just described for Neptune. Now, the full moon is also in opposition to Mars. So Mars is, as I said earlier, when I talked about the sun being on Mars, war, passion, fighting. Yes, gunshots. Yes, guns. And so what we have here is what is called a T cross. The full moon to Mars, squaring Neptune, back again. It's like a three-legged table. Well, the fourth leg is empty. And so whenever we have a T cross triggered, all the energy goes into that empty arm. And that empty arm is the 11th house of Congress, congressmen, legislation, the treasury, and both city and county councils. In a mundane chart, it does deal with the friends of the country involved. So it would be the friends, America's friends. But I'm more interested in the Congress and legislation, because this is an issue that the guns are a major issue. Abortion, major issue. Need I say more? Okay. Then the new moon on June 28th. Remember, I said that the sun sits on Venus and Jupiter at the end of the month, bringing abundance. Now, I don't know how much that's going to be. You might say, well, does that mean I'm going to get a raise? I don't know. What does it say in your birth chart? This is the country chart, okay? And so we're dealing with millions of people. But the new moon is when the energy starts growing again. It's in 7 degrees of Cancer, and it activates the entire second house of the United States chart. So it's not just Venus, which is love and beauty, and Jupiter, which is God's law, and even greater abundance, but the sun, the giver of life. And so there will be some kind of increase across the boards on a financial level. Okay, that's the first card. Now, let me keep on going. Mercury. Well, Mercury is what we think about and talk about. Mercury, today is June 3rd. And please excuse this report being late. I like to get it out before the month starts, but I celebrated my birthday on this past Monday, and the celebration started the previous Friday. And after the celebration was a day of recovery, and part of Wednesday also recovery. So anyhow, you get the picture. I'm back. So Mercury will literally go forward, will move forward tomorrow, June 4th. It will enter the shadow of the retrograde, so that until the 18th. So it's going to feel like Mercury is still retrograde when Mercury's in the shadow. This is a second opportunity, in my opinion, to tie up the loose ends of unfinished business that you didn't take care of when Mercury was retrograde. When Mercury's retrograde, that's when we tie up the loose ends of unfinished projects. But things are so confusing then that we don't often find the time to do that. And so the final shadow is what I have seen is the time that it gets done. All right, Mercury, communication, correspondence, transportation. Mercury is in our 12th house of behind the scenes activities. So there's a lot of conversation going on privately that the country and the world are not privy to, okay? The 12th house in a mundane chart deals with bribery, spies. Yes, that's hacking too. It deals with our hidden enemies. And these hidden enemies can be right there in front of your face and you wouldn't know it, okay? They're hiding in plain sight very often. It rules, excuse me, we are pollinated here in Atlanta. I am pollinated. It rules prisons and jails, hospitals, criminals, all right, charitable institutions, seclusion, secret societies, and welfare. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes until the 20th and the 21st. So there's planning going on privately. Is it with our hidden enemies? Possibly so. Does this mean more hacking? Probably. But on the 20th and 21st, Mercury crosses the United States ascendant and sits on Uranus, and Uranus is the rebel. And we can expect to hear some rebellious rhetoric from the people at that point in time. It's that simple. Mercury triggers Uranus, and so the country will be verbalizing its rebellion. And on the 29th, Mercury sits on Mars. And remember, Mars is gunfire. Mars is fighting. Mars is basically in the first house doing what you want, when you want, how you want, because you want. And so there will probably be more outbursts. I'm trying to find the politically correct word for this. Rebellions on the part of people who want action. Venus, love, beauty, everything, money, all the good stuff is in our 12th house. And what this does is it softens all of those behind the scenes meetings that are going on. In other words, the behind the scenes meetings may not be negative. There can be love, Venus is love, loving relationships going on, loving meetings, meetings designed to unify rather than tear apart. On the 29th, Venus moves into the first house and sits on Uranus, sits on the ascendant. And in a personal chart, when Venus sits on your ascendant, you fall in love with yourself and you beautify yourself. And so the attitude, both the political attitude and the mood of the people is happier. However, with Uranus, the rebel involved, we just don't know what all's going to be happening. Now, Uranus rules the midheaven of the United States chart, and that is the executive branch of the government. And so there can be something handed down from President Biden that is very positive, loving, caring, and triggers a positive result. Okay. Now, let's talk about Mars. Mars, again, war, anger, what you fight with and fight for. The 11th house is Congress and congressmen and legislation and the Treasury. And so there's a lot of passion going on in the Senate. Jupiter, the greater benefic, is expansion, abundance. It's God's law. And I certainly hope that God's law is dealing positively with Congress and Congress people. There is a tendency to exaggerate wherever Jupiter is. And so many people feel that they are practicing or expressing God's law. I'm not going to say anything about that. You really don't want to hear what I think about that. Okay, so Mars is going to cross into the 12th house of behind the scenes activities, hidden enemies, bribery, spies, hospitals, criminals, secret societies, welfare, but mainly things we don't see. Sometimes that is a requirement. Sometimes we've all watched enough crime shows and movies to know that sometimes things have to be done quietly and privately, or the results might be disastrous. I get that. I really do. However, what this says is those people behind the scenes that do not have our interest at heart are activated. Now, I have here one final chart, and I was going to call this this is what I'm concerned about. All right. You see Pluto, Saturn, and Uranus. And some of you who are astrologers know where I'm headed, particularly if you work with the 7 Gemini ascending chart. Okay, let's just start here with Pluto. I have talked about Pluto's returning to its natal place in the United States chart for a while. It will be going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, transiting Pluto will over our natal Pluto. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. This can be symbolic death, of course. It's total transformation, total annihilation. And the 9th house deals with those people, foreign countries, the upper courts, foreign travels, higher education. When I say the higher courts, I'm talking about the Supreme Court, philosophy, world trade. In other words, the bigger picture. Our principles, our philosophies have a very, very strong out with the old, in with a new tone to them. And this is going to continue from 2022 through 2023 and a little bit in 2024, which means that our relations with foreign countries can undergo a total metamorphosis, international travel, international delivery of manufacture and delivery of products, out with the old, in with the new. It's an all or nothing time. Then, of course, Pluto will be moving up to the midheaven. I'll get to that in a year or so. However, Saturn, the planet of reality and structure, is sitting on the very top of the chart. That 10th house deals with the president. The moon is also representative of the president. And the midheaven is Aquarius, and the moon is in Aquarius, which is very telling, because Uranus marches, Aquarius marches to its own drummer. Now, whenever Saturn is on the midheaven, whether in your birth chart or in a country's chart, you or the country, and in this case, the president, is at the top of their game. This is the time when you will be at the top of your game. This shows that President Biden is stepping up. And just today, I noticed when I was watching the news, President Biden gave a talk last night about those egregious murders that have been going on with weapons of war, where children are being killed, teachers are being killed, innocent victims are being killed. Okay, enough said. Saturn on the midheaven and the moon shows great strength on the part of our president. It's a very serious planet Saturn is. And there is a structural tone to Saturn. Saturn will be on the midheaven, right smack dab on the midheaven, and then the moon from September through December of 2022. We are already feeling Saturn moving up to that midheaven. I know that it's only June, but we are seeing it, and we're going to find that the president is going to get tougher, more serious, and he has been known for telling it like it is. So we'll have to wait and see what he tells. All right. Now, I like the Saturn on the midheaven. I'm, holding my breath about Pluto and Uranus. Now, Uranus is the rebel, as we know. It's in the 12th house of behind the scenes activities, hospitals, criminals, prisons, seclusion, mainly, the way I'm looking at it now, hidden enemies. And Uranus rules technology. Uranus is squaring, that's a challenging aspect, the moon and the midheaven. All of 2022, all of 2023, and some of 2024. Where did we hear that a minute ago? Pluto, transiting Pluto. 22, 23, and a little bit in 24. So we have two of the most explosive planets doing their thing. Pluto on the natal Pluto in the US chart, and Uranus, this squaring the moon and the midheaven. What this says to me is that there are hidden enemies. We probably won't find out who they are because they're the ones punching the buttons. They're not necessarily the ones carrying the guns, all right? The president's going to be under fire. I don't mean literally. The image of the president is under attack. And so I'm very pleased that Saturn is up there now, but it's not going to be on the midheaven and the moon in 23 or 24. So it's this Uranian hidden enemy, whoever that is, whoever they are, that concerns me. So, and I will keep you posted on, how this moves forward in the next few years, next couple, excuse me, of years. But it will be as I've described, or the principle involved will be as I've described. How it will manifest, we have to wait and see. And so, dear friends, just know that there is a tipping point. We can, as a nation, turn things from destruction to rebuilding. It doesn't mean the whole country has to be in on it. It's just a group here, there, wherever that wants to see truth and love and honor once again. That it deals with politicians who really want to serve the country. Because as you can see, with this once in a lifetime death and rebirth transformation, and Uranus just not literally, but figuratively taking pot shots at anybody in authority in order to make our country look bad, I suggest that we all come together in truth and in love and leave politics out of it. I don't think anybody who has a child wants to see that child murdered over a gun because of guns. So I hope that our elected officials will come together. So I will keep you posted. That's all I got to say for June. And if you have any questions about this, please ask. If you need your own reading, please go to my website, MaxineTaylor.com. I'll be glad to work with you. So until next month, dear friends, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours. Bye for now, and blessings on Ukraine.